2024, except we don't have the caregivers of Petrolia Ferals and No One Stands Alone. So those two weren't included in 25's budget, sorry.
Okay. And they didn't
Yeah.
submit within the
Yeah.
date for council's consideration. All right, thank you. Any questions regarding those donations? I'll just pass that back. Thank you, Councillor Hyatt. All right, we'll move on to general administration. And I'll just wait for that to come up on the screen. Starting with council and boards. Just a question I have before I open up to council regarding the donations and grants. We're at 18,000. We budgeted 14. We're going to reduce it to 91. Would someone like to speak to that, please? Or Mr. Charlebois, would you like to speak to that?
91.
This one here.
Yeah. Yeah. So the 91 is what we just looked at before lunch.
Okay.
So really doctor recruitment for 300, Petrolia Skill and Agricultural
Okay.
Society 700.
Gotcha.
St. Joseph's. Yeah.
And last year we actually it was 18,240. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions from council?
So that's actually 9,600 now, right? Because we added 500.
True.
It will be. That's
Yes,
correct.
yes.
Thank you,
Correct.
Councillor Clark. Any other questions? Councillor Hyatt.
Thank you. I was wondering what line item promotional materials is. Looks like a new line item in the budget, so I'm just curious.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Mrs. Pearson, or would you like to
Certainly.
speak to that?
Through your worship,
Yeah.
I certainly would. So in speaking with the Director of Marketing, Arts and Communications, her budget had previously accommodated the promotional materials that council uses, such as the pins, the pens, the items that are given away. And the cost for her in 2024 was $4,000 for what council. So she would like that to be separated out, rightfully so, as it is a council expense and not a town marketing expense. So those are the items that you take with you to your presentations and whatnot, and you distribute as council.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. I can add to that because quite often I'm going to different events and Larissa always gives me either pins or pens or cups and people retire from the county or wherever. I always take them a gift on behalf of the council and the staff of the corporation. Okay. All right. Let's go on to general administration review or revenue. Sorry. Any questions? Okay, we'll go on to salaries and remuneration. Continuing on, office and general expenses. Legal and professional fees. We've spent nothing on audit fees at this time.
No, they haven't sent us the invoice yet. I was just speaking to them a week or two ago. They're
Okay,
going to send us something in December.
thank you. Insurance. Hopefully there won't be a big change
Yeah.
there, but
Yeah, we still don't know our premiums, but might go up a bit.
Any chance for alternative provider if the price goes up significantly or?
Charlebois, you want to speak to that?
Actually, as a whole county, we looked at that about a year, maybe a year and a half ago to try and do that and do one for the whole county, including all the lower tiers. There's only, I think it's 3 insurance companies now. There's been a lot of amalgamation of insurance companies. And so that wasn't going to work. AMO was also looking at coming up with a municipalities if they want to go self-insured. Well, that's potential, but it'll take another couple of years before they work that out.
Just to speak to that, the city of Sarnia, for example, does self-insure with other municipalities. Deputy Mayor Field.
Yeah, just a comment, watching a recent Sarnia Council meeting, they were talking about insurance rates as well. Because they are a frequent shopper where they keep going out. One of the last times they had 2 companies of the 3 that wouldn't bid on them.
Right.
So you could actually get blackballed by constantly going out.
Actually, yes. I just watched that same council
Yeah.
meeting or that part of it, and they're saying that might get exactly that, blackballed and not have any insurance. Yeah,
Yeah.
they switched from self-insured to, I don't know who they ended
By
up
the time
with.
they went
Yeah.
through the RFP process and
Yeah.
went through to do it again, some of the companies aren't even bidding on them because
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
just,
And we do get outstanding customer service from Intech.
Yeah, that's the old Frank Cowan that
Right.
looked after municipalities for probably 70 years. That just sold out to them a couple of years ago.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to other expenses. I guess I have a quick question under training. And I think I've got that or had that answered at, you budgeted 25,000. Last year, we only budgeted 13,500, but we came in roughly at 25. So that's just a catch-up period, Mr.
Yep.
Charlebois.
Yes, during COVID, there was a lot of training.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from council regarding other expenses? If not, a collection expenses. I look forward to that in another 2 years. Okay.
You
Sorry.
really.
Look forward to it.
Victoria Hall. Oh, no, so we've done, we can do Victoria Hall, right?
Yep.
We'll go through that first. It's repair and maintenance. We only budgeted 35 last year. We're budgeting 80 this year. Would someone like to just update me on that?
Sure, I'll try and then Julie can add if she wishes. So this building takes a lot of repair and maintenance, and there's a lot of routine operating cost, like changing all the filters, and there's a lot of filters throughout this place. And a lot of servicing that we need done. That's not capital or larger project. We thought we could get it down to 35,000, but we can't.
Okay.
So we've got it up to 80. And remember, this is just to the end of October. Right.
Okay, thank you. All right, debenture payment, we have no control over that. Let's move on to facilities maintenance. Any questions regarding the facility maintenance? Seeing none, now we'll go to the Bank of the Nova Scotia building we purchased. And I think we need to have a motion to discuss that. Mrs. Pearson, is that correct?
That's correct, your worship.
So I think, when you pull that up, would you read that again, just so we're clear? And that is for the option 2, I believe.
Correct.
So while she's pulling that up, that motion is, I'll ask council, to please look at the expense budget in front of you.
Okay.
And I'll just like to ask, as Deputy Mayor Field, do you have anything you'd like to add regarding there's the revenue, and then there's the expenses that you briefly discussed earlier.
So, your worship, there was no mover or seconder. It was just
Oh.
direction to move it to this portion of the agenda. So I will read the motion for you, but also if I could get a mover and seconder for that motion.
Okay, moved by Deputy Mayor Field. I need a seconder, Councillor Clark. All right, read that motion, please,
And that
Mrs.
is for the
Pearson.
Council of the Town of Petrolia to approve as presented the Scotiabank Building Business Case Number 2, and that staff are directed to proceed with implementation of the Business Case Number 2 with front office space for rentals and rear space as a community space operated by the town, and that this approval be added to Section 4022 of the town budget.
Okay, any discussion from council? Councillor O'Hara.
The space that Petrolia is going to use, that won't be opened every day. It'll just be opened when somebody's going to use it.
That's my understanding. Deputy Mayor Field, would you like to speak to that, please?
yeah, that was our intent. Not to staff it. Staffing was going to be a whole another expense. But I believe that there's organizations that could be using it, that could be opening it. I'm not speaking for the Heritage, but a Saturday that the Heritage possibly are doing a function that would open it up for anyone to go in as well.
To add that to that, your worship, for all town facilities, we have a booking calendar. So that would just be incorporated into the booking calendar. So that would be a facility that could be booked to that booking calendar.
Good, okay, thank you. Mrs. Pearson, okay, is that okay on Councillor O'Hara?
Yeah.
All right. Any, go ahead, Councillor Hyatt.
My question is just related to all the codes associated with each of the expenses. Can the Scotiabank have its own codes as opposed to being shared with the VPP?
I believe 4022 two has been allocated for the Scotia Bank.
Maybe it was just the last four digits. Same.
The last four digits are the same. That tells us travel and training will always be
Always,
consistent.
yeah.
The last four digits are the same. Yeah.
Oh, Counselor, oh, sorry, Mr. Charlebois, go ahead.
Thank you. Through your worship, good question. So basically our code has 2, 4, and then 4. The first two digits, 01, just means Petrolia. The middle 4 digits means the department or section of us.
Oh,
And the last 4 digits is the type of expenditure, like utilities. Most departments have utility costs, so it'll be the same 4 digits.
okay.
Thank you.
All right, any other discussion? If not, then I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor of approving that motion? Opposed? That motion carries. Okay, thank you. Any other questions regarding the Bank of Nova Scotia and our purchase before I move on? Move on to protection services. Then the revenue, all I want to mention there, that revenue, the first one regarding the county policing, there's a strong possibility we will not get that 17,000 this year. I know it's been in place since I was involved back in the 90s, late 90s.
Gonna be bigger now? No.
I asked for more about a year ago, if you remember, and they're reviewing it, but I just want to make clear, and maybe Councillor Harry can correct me if I'm wrong, that was the enticement for us to join the rest of the municipalities to go OPP. Now, there's a difference of opinion, but I remember well, it wasn't for the court cost. It was really, if we joined, the county would give us the 17,000 a year. It's been the same for years. I did ask if they had consider increasing it. The motion went through, they would consider evaluating it because some thought that should be, it's been done for years, they should stop that. But I will certainly vote in favor to keep that, especially when our policing costs are going up, but I'll stop there. Any other questions from council? Okay, we'll move on to police services and bylaw enforcement. I just want to mention there, I'm a little concerned with the OPP contract. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mrs. Pearson. It's not really our local police group. It's the Aurelia that set the fees, and I know there was an adjustment from the previous year, and plus the increase is around 20%. And you look at the increase from 1.1 million to 1.3. I think my concern is if that continues from the OPP, I think this council in the future should look at other options. And I can discuss that at a different time. There are some other options. I don't like that, but I think the message to the province is either hopefully help and bail some of the communities out that are getting anywhere between 15 to 27% increase in 1 year is a pretty stiff hike. And as you know, just putting it from 1.1 million to 1.3 or 200,000 as an example, we need $66,000 for a 1% increase. Really, almost our 3% has been eaten up just on the police alone. And again, I'll stop there.
So yes, to answer your question, your worship, that is for the provincial policing contract. That is not the Lambton Group policing expenses. That means that all municipalities, as you stated, were affected by that policing increase because it was anyone with the OPP policing contract. If council wishes, they can direct a motion through the budget process for the province to consider some assistance. We could add that into this budget process.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. I think we should do that and maybe at the same state our disappointment in the large increase and ask if the province, with letters to go to our MPP, Mr. Bailey, to request some financial aid for policing costs. And I would hope other communities would be doing the same thing because we are, as I said, are not alone with this huge increase. And I do want to also mention there's a huge increase, but there is no change in our level of service. There's no additional staff. There's no improvements. It's just the same policing as we're getting. So I want to make that clear. So I would entertain a motion if council would consider a motion to go to the province stating our concern with the increase in our policing and ask for some financial aid. Councillor Welsh,
I'm happy to move that.
thank you. I need a seconder. Councillor Patel. I'll open it up for discussion. Can you maybe put something together?
I'm just gonna ask actually, to our treasurer, was it 21% in Petrolia roundabout?
5.5.
Thank you.
Okay, and I stand corrected. We said 20%. Councillor Patel.
So through you, does this not connect back to going to the county as far as what they're allocating for funds, knowing that we've had this big jump? How can they review it, or is this going to help in that process?
The county is really not involved with that at all.
No, I apologize. The 17,000 that's allocated, that's never been increased. And now we're hit with a 21%.
That's a good argument that I can certainly request. But again, I tried to have that increase a year ago. And a lot of the people there weren't aware of the arrangement years ago. And we're talking 24, 25 or more years ago, it's been 17,000.
My understanding that was going to municipalities that had OPP. You also have a municipality that has 47% of it, which is Sarnia police that don't get anything because of that. I think when it was raised, I think it also flagged it was Sarnia going, you're not giving us anything per capita either. So per capita. So I think it's going to disappear like the mayor has said. Because of the city component, which would likely put a lot more towards it. So
Yeah, as you say, they carry almost the majority.
and Point Edward has a separate contract.
That's right.
So
And again, I want to make it clear, this was so the OPP didn't have to attend all the separate police service boards. Now, by putting it all together with this enticement was so that then they could just have one board dealing with all these municipalities. All
They're
right,
still drafting this, sorry.
okay. I don't mind mentioning too, there was some discussion of trying to see if Point Edward would become part of this group, or if the province would maybe mandate that they become part of the group, but that did not happen.
Are you looking to, financial assistance to bridge this increase or the 2024 increase?
I don't know if I'd use the word bridge. I don't want them to think it's a one-time thing. I think it was to ask us
To offset?
to offset these large percentage increases that are really difficult for small municipalities, something to that effect.
Are difficult
1 year.
Yeah.
for small municipalities. Adjust to.
Yeah, I think you should. I wonder if we should even consider putting on that, it's almost a 3 or 4% increase just for police. Or are we making it too?
I think that
Cloud.
that could then go further, but yes, so whereas municipalities across Ontario experienced a significant increase in the OPP provincial policing contracts, recent expenses recently released. Now, that the town of Petrolia would like to state our concern with the 21.5% increase to our municipality alone and the effect across the province. Now, therefore, the council sent a letter to the minister, the premier, MPP Bailey, and municipalities across Ontario to request that the province provide financial assistance to offset the large percentage increases that are difficult for small municipalities to adjust to each year.
Great, I like that. And I would hope a lot of the municipalities would join us with that. Councillor Welsh.
I'm just going to read to you directly from the provincial auditor's last report on the OPP. The OPP do not have processes in place to consistently deliver provincial and municipal police services efficiently and effectively. That is directly from the auditor's report.
Could you even get closer to the mic and speak, give me that again? Because I think I heard it, but I want to be really clear on that.
Conclusions. The OPP do not have processes in place to consistently deliver provincial and municipal police services efficiently and effectively. It also does say, this is the second bullet, the OPP does not have performance indicators with targets to measure and publicly report on the effectiveness of the police services it delivers. That is directly from the Ontario Auditor's report.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Wells. I'd like to back up. When this first happened, the first 5 years we went into a contract, and I have told a few councillors, we entered, the OPP looked after all our bylaw enforcement. They did parking tickets, they did everything for the community. After the 5 years we joined, they stopped and said, we no longer will do any of those. You'll have to hire your own bylaw enforcement officer, which was a disappointment because for the first 5 years, we had great coverage. 5 years later, they said, you know what? Same price, same thing, but we're not going to do all these things we used to do for the community before. I'll stop there again.
So I have added what Councillor Welsh has said into from that. So I've added that into the
Happy to
motion.
send you a
All right,
link to that report.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. All right.
So we-
Any other discussion from council?
And I'm sorry, do we have a mover and seconder on that?
Yeah, we did. We had Councillor Welsh
Councillor.
and Councillor Patel.
Thank you.
All right, I guess I'll call the vote. All those in favor of that motion? Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving on. We'll go now to the protective inspections control. Councillor Hyatt?
Sorry, I had one question here about bylaw enforcement. Just a general question is that, how has the proactive bylaw enforcement been seen in the community? Has there been any feedback or have people received feedback? And is it showing, is the added expense showing any results?
I can start. I'm getting some feedback. I think it's improving, but it's still not where I'd like it to be yet. My biggest complaints I get, and just the other day, are cars being left on the street all night long. And and I've got several others for parking, but that's the big one right now. As of, I think it was November, they're supposed to have the cars off the street. There's now several cars, and even on my street, that just leave them all night long.
So your worship, through you, the bylaw enforcement officer will continue to update that on their activities in the town. For the amount that's allocated for them to respond to in Petrolia, they fill that very quickly each week. So the need in Petrolia is greater for what we've provided them the ability to serve us with. They could expand the services should at any time council wish for that to happen. Right now, we have budgeted so many funds, and that is where our service level is being represented at.
I wonder if, do they ever go out though at night to check these?
They do, your worship.
Okay.
The patrols are at all various times and days. There's no consistency.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Welsh.
And I have a lot of concerns with that, with the new trash pickup, that it's going to impede a lot of the pickup in certain areas. And I mean, it will do that in the summer if people are parked in the way, but certainly to get started until we have a sort of ease in period with everyone, it's going to be difficult for them.
So again, through your worship, if I can speak to that, with the issuing of more parking tickets, we do need to put a process in place for the provincial process to fulfill those parking tickets. So we can, if council would like to direct us, look at that expense. Roughly last year when we brought this forward, Rick, do you recall roughly what that amount was to implement the ARIS program and this? And we would have to have staffing hired. It would be a half a person position, because at this time there's no municipality willing to come together. The County of Lambton is looking at providing ARIS services to lower tier municipalities. That isn't something that is in place at this time. It's still discussions with legislative services at the county level. The stopgap occurred when the city of Sarnia no longer offered parking services to lower tier municipalities. So therefore, for every parking ticket we issue, we have to go through and process that through the court system. And that is called the ARIS program. And there is an expense not only for ARIS, but also the processes to get that from the issuance of ticket in through the province to get the funds returned to us. So it is something that we can engage in, obviously processing more tickets. However, if those tickets are not paid, there is an offset through the ARIS program.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. I wonder, is there any possibility we could maybe see if the city of Sarnia would enter an agreement with us again, like we had before, where they processed our tickets? We issued the tickets. I think there were 7 days they paid this, and after 15 days, then it went on to the next step. We used to send it to the city of Sarnia, who would produce it then. They kept all the funds after that, but we didn't have to do anything. And then at that time, if the fees weren't paid within the year, they couldn't renew their license. So
Through your worship, I believe that became part of the bylaw enforcement restructuring at the city of Sarnia. And I'm not sure if it was their reasons for it, if it was a staffing reason or the restructuring of the person who was responsible in that position. We have had these conversations at the county level, and there is no indication from the city that they would be willing to re-engage into that.
I wonder, okay, thank you, Mrs. Pearson, though. I would certainly be willing to speak to the mayor, but I wonder if we should consider a motion asking the city of Sarnia if they would consider doing that again. And I don't mind getting involved with that as well, because it was a great system for us. We didn't make a lot of revenue on it, but it certainly, they did a lot of the work and kept the revenue, but at least we had, good enforcement.
But is that a thing that we should just talk to them, not a motion that's going to go through their council?
Okay, you know what, if
Publicize it more than.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Field. I'd be pleased to talk to the mayor to see what he thought about that. And I'll see him tomorrow at County Council if you wish. Why don't I do that and I'll report back. Okay, thank you.
Through your worship too, if I can just add on, it is something that is on the table through legislative services at the County of Lambton. There's just a lot of elements that go through it because it is a provincially regulated process. So it may be something that the county is getting closer to. So we may be able to get a update from the county as well.
Okay, that would be nice. My only concern is the county takes an awful long time to do some of those things. So, but I will still speak to the mayor and report back. If you could move on ahead, and I'll even ask the county tomorrow, just informally to see where they're at with that. Thank you. Bear with me a minute here. Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on now to, we've done, okay, crossing guards. Anything regarding the
Excuse me.
crossing guards?
I'll declare a conflict of interest on crossing guards.
Okay, please note for the record that Councillor O'Hara is declaring a conflict of interest regarding the crossing guards. And that is due to your son.
Is a crossing
Okay,
guard.
just so we know what the benefit, the reasons. All right, Councillor Welsh.
Should we just handle this particular section on its own then, so that Councillor O'Hara is able to vote on the rest of this?
Yeah, we're just going to do crossing guards. He'll come back into the seat for health and safety. That's okay.
No, but should we not actually do the move and approval of this? So that across,
Okay,
just for this particular section, so that Councillor O'Hara is free to
All right.
comment on the rest of it?
sure, we can do that. So I'll ask again, any questions regarding the crossing guard? If not, then I'll entertain a motion. Okay, moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Hyatt, that we approve the crossing, section 4150 crossing guards. Any discussion? I'll ask the clerk maybe just to read that motion.
And that would be that section 4150 of the draft 2025 budget be approved as presented.
Okay, any discussion from council? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. Okay, please note, Councillor Harris resumed his seat. We'll move on to Health and Safety Committee. Excuse me. Any questions regarding the Health and Safety Committee? We'll go on to Emergency Services. Okay, we'll move on to the Fire Department. Again, I'll ask Chief Cousins, please interject if there's anything you'd like to add as I go, please. All right, we're looking at the revenue first. You can see there is an increase in revenue. Any questions? Okay, we'll go on to expenses for salaries and remuneration. Now, as far as the summer staff, Chief Cousins, how many people are you looking at bringing on there? Is that just one or two people?
Through you, your worship. Yeah, it's two. We'd like to have two more
Okay, thank
this
you.
summer.
Any questions from council? Okay, we'll move on to office and general expenses. Move on to equipment related expenses. Okay, we'll move on to firefighter related expenses. Okay, insurance, move on. Central dispatch. Prevention, education. And I'll just stop here and wait for our clerk to get back. All right, first aid supplies. Utilities and building costs. Other expenses. And again, remember, this is just our portion. Is it the 60% of the fire budget? You can look at page 18 if you like with the totals. And I'll just ask again, Chief Cousins, is there anything here or any major changes that you'd like to bring to council's attention regarding the fire budget?
No.
Okay. Is there okay with what's here? Any questions from council? All right, we'll move on to public works. We'll look at the revenue. And we'll look at expenses for public works. Repairs and maintenance. Works equipment. Sanitation collection.
Your worship,
Yes.
Councillor,
Oh,
Councillor Welch.
sorry, Councillor Wells, go ahead.
Well, here I am about the compost again.
Okay,
So essentially, it costs us $26,000 to drive leaves and grass around the county and provide staff to do that. Is that correct?
that's my understanding. That's what's here.
Is there any way to reduce that cost?
Well, 26,000 minus whatever revenue. Yeah, okay. But I don't mind saying it's a great service to the community. I use it and usually I line up to get in. If you wanted to cut it, I could certainly see us maybe reducing the time. Instead of going maybe 8 till noon, go 8 to 11 or 9 to 12. But I think it's a great service, not just for grass cutting, it's for clippings and everything else. But I don't mind saying I line up to get in there. The other concern I had, though, is I think by increasing the rate to $30 has discouraged a few because the 25 seemed a little more acceptable by a lot of people. And I'm just concerned that if we didn't do this, a lot of it would still end up in our garbage. But I'll stop there.
I can look to see how many purchases were passed, how many compost passes were purchased
Okay.
in 2020.
I understand.
Thank you. I could lose my voice.
1,260. Is that the revenue?
Yes, so divide that by 30.
We know the breakdown,
42.
Thank you.
we know the breakdown of leaf collection, like is that's like when they drive around the street and pick up the bags versus what it costs to transfer from
I'm not sure what, Mr. Charlotte, but you have the cost for, sorry, go ahead. Mr. Thompson.
Councillor Welsh reached out to me yesterday. I sent her roughly the cost for the wages for the compost and the leaf collection. I forget off the top of my head what I said, but I'm sure she has it.
$3,600 for compost for 13 days and $4,600 for 2 months of leaf collection.
Yeah, so so there's 14 events, Saturdays, 8 to 12. A couple young fellows working there. I have 4 because between sports and sicknesses and travel and stuff like that. So the odd young fellas there, but as far as the cost for taking the material to Sarnia, there's an overlap between compost and leaf collection. So it's hard to, and we can do a better job. It's hard to differentiate what those costs are. It's easy from November 2nd on because it's just leaves from November 2nd to mid-December. But yeah, the only thing I can find the real cost for the wages.
But we are paying the transportation costs to Sarnia.
We pay Waste Management to come get the bin, take the bin to Sarnia, and then dump it and bring the bin back. We pay for Porta John to be out there, the wages. Yeah, so those are the costs. And as the mayor alluded to, the only reduction in cost would be reducing the hours, the events, the days, or the amount of time we pick up leaves. It's a crapshoot with that because we've been, like October to middle of October to middle of December. This year there wasn't a lot of leaves in October, but in past years there's a lot of leaves. And so time for first frost, when they start falling, what have you. So you could reduce the amount of time we do leaf collection too. I've grappled with that over the years, and I've always kind of landed on the 2 months, but we could reduce that. That's the only way you'd reduce the cost, is reduce the amount of time it's open, the events, or the duration of the leaf collection.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Just a comparison, the Lambton Shores, they actually cut off their leaf collection about mid-November. They don't go into December. I think we go to the second week of December. But Lambton Shores, for example, they've cut it off. The other thing is it's a service, and I don't mind mentioning, even Strathroy, for example, when Councillor O'Hara and Mr. Charlebois and I went a couple of years ago, the people now have to even take their leaves to the compost site. They don't pick it up door to door. But again, it's a service we're supplying now. Councillor Welsh.
So do the environmental benefits are of actually being able to get rid of your yard refuse, they're outpaced by the fact that we're paying all of these wages, paying to drive this stuff around the county, which again seems ridiculous to me. Assuming once again that people who have this yard waste also have a yard where they could be managing it themselves. Composters, etc. Anyway, it's something I would love to see when we review levels of service, which have to be done for July the 1st, 2025 for our asset management plan. It's maybe something we consider is the different levels of service and what we're paying for, as and how the benefits opposed to the.
We could consider cutting the hours for the compost and maybe cutting the time period to pick up leaves.
Your worship, through you, council does approve that annually with through a report to council.
Okay.
So
right.
that report comes to council in February-ish annually. So that at that time, council could definitely consider some amendments to that level of service.
Okay, I'm okay with that. Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. All right, Councillor O'Hara.
Just speak quickly to it. It is, I guess, if you want to cut the level of service is one thing, but of course we could close the arena on Saturdays and save some money too.
Wow. Boom. Okay, Councillor Hyatt.
The materials that we're composting, are they being composted at a different facility or are they going to waste?
Through your worship, that's correct. We this is a transfer station. So all the material comes there, gets in dumpsters, and then it's taken to Sarnia compost site for processing.
Yeah.
And that price is negotiated with Sarnia, or is that price is negotiated?
They pay us they charge us a per cubic ton or whatever it is. We don't get the bills generally till like February or March the following year. They really lag on the bills, but yes, we pay them to take it there, as well as pay Waste Management to truck it there.
Right, because the wages only make like 1/3 of the total cost, so it's actually the disposal that would need to be looked at, not really specifically the wages.
Councillor Hyatt too, we used to have a compost site. And then for unfortunate reasons, we lost the license, and that hasn't been a compost site since.
They're a compost transfer site.
Okay. All right, let's keep moving on then. We'll go to street collection, I guess, please. Street lighting. Public Works Adventure, we can't do anything with that. We'll go to the community center. Again, I'll ask Mrs. Bullock to interject at any time. Any questions regarding the YMCA operating costs? The only concern I have is the $15,000, which is a swimming passes expense, which really is just promoting the revenue for the Y, which I don't totally agree with, but it's there, and we've agreed to monitor it in 6 months, so we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Do we know
Councillor
where we're
Wells.
at all with that? Have we had people purchasing those passes from us?
$40.
Mrs. Bullock?
Yeah.
Through your worship to Councillor Welsh.
Yeah, speaking of Mike, yeah, so, yeah.
We've probably sold about between 15 and 20 swimming passes, either family, senior, or individual. And most of those have been redeemed at the Y, although there is still a few outstanding. So someone has purchased, but actually hasn't even gone into the Y to fill it out yet. So we're in the 15 to 20 range right at the moment.
And again, my concern is we're playing with numbers. We're already picking up the deficit anyway, but I'll stop there, Mr. Charlebois, go ahead, please.
Thank you, through your worship. Also, we're coming back to council on the next council meeting, the 9th of November, or 9th of December, on a report on the swimming passes, because to decide whether council wants to open it up to everybody or just keep it to Petrolia people. I'll come in the 9th of December.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, and sorry, one last point is why didn't think we'd sell a lot of swim passes until the winter months. I guess people swim more in the winter.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to the arena revenue. We have the grant revenue. While you're looking, I have concerns for that, but I'll ask Mrs. Bullock, and I think Mr. Charlebois did help me a bit. My concern is the Oil Springs and Dawn.
Don pays at the end of the year.
Are we still going to get some money from them? Deputy Mayor Field.
It's my understanding Don makes that payment at the end of the year.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah,
Council.
actually, just talked to them yesterday. Yes, exactly. They're going to pay it the next couple of weeks.
Oil Springs,
Say again?
Oil Springs, no.
Yeah.
Well, see, my concern, and I'm pleased to hear that from Don, but for the others to look at one municipality not paying and they're paying, I think is going to cause us some concern.
I may be able to add to that, something that we've been working on. So we did through Plimpton, Wyoming, meet after that had been raised to our attention here. Through that, I crafted a bylaw that would speak to municipal representation and allocation. That is currently before Plimpton, Wyoming's council. I was just trying to pull it up. I did speak with the clerk last week and she was preparing the report to that. So I haven't been able to see if that has made it to their floor yet. Once we know what Plimpton, Wyoming is doing, I did have direction from the CAO to send out a similar proposed bylaw to our other 3 supporting municipalities.
But I guess my concern, okay, and that's good. And I'm pleased with that. And I know we did attend the council meeting at most Mr. Charlebois and I in Plimpton, Wyoming. My concern is right now with just as Oil Springs, we didn't get anything. Did we not get anything from them the previous year? Have we gone a couple of years?
That's been a couple.
Speak to that. That's been several years, likely coming on 10. When they built their skate park, for the history of that, they provided us a response to our letter when we requested funding, letting us know that they had taken their funds to and directed it towards the skate park, and that we would have to invoice the individual residents for the collection of that fee. So the collection of that fee was invoiced to the individual residents. However, those weren't being paid, and the cost recovery and the staff effort for the amount that was being put into those residents was outweighing what we actually would receive back through that grant.
All right, thank you for that, Mrs. Pearson. But what I'd like the council, or I'd like to maybe ask Mrs. Bullock to do, and this was done a number of years ago, and we charged $50 for all of those individuals that was going to be charged to minor hockey and figure skating for those out of town. That was never done because that's what got this started. So all the municipalities contributed. But what I'd like to see done then, that we like to take this 1,500 plus 1,500 for next year. So you take 3,000 and figure out how many people are actually from Oil Springs that come to minor hockey or figure
Your
skating.
Worship, Councillor Clark.
Councillor Clark.
That's exactly what Mrs. Pearson just talked about. They tried that, and the cost of trying to recover that money outweighed the money that they were going to make from doing that process.
Thank you, Councillor Clark, but that's not what I'm proposing here. It would be charged to minor hockey and figure skating. So minor hockey and figure skating would have to charge an additional, maybe I'm missing this, the additional $200 or $300, and then we would bill. The organizations would either pay us or we would bill them.
So through your worship, I think between Director Bullock and I, we can explain why there's difficulties with that, even more so to what we were previously able to do to source those numbers, is that the registration process has now gone from being organization based, especially with hockey. It is now based through Hockey Canada, and Hockey Canada, when you register, does not allow you to select that. You can have addresses, but as you know, Petrolia, Enniskillen, Oil Springs share commonalities. So you may have an Enniskillen, but you may be an Oil Springs address, but you may be in Enniskillen. You may have a Petrolia address, but you may be in Enniskillen. And there is no way to delineate that. So that's why we are taking the approach where we're speaking with the individual municipalities to set out long-term agreements for a set recovery that finance has established.
I guess my main concern, if we let one off, the others are going to say, why are we paying? Deputy Mayor Field.
Just a comment. We just recently had the users show up to talk about a second ice pad, and they're going to speak to all these communities. So, maybe if we give them the time to go out and do that. Our speaker was from Oil Springs, and possibly they could go out and engage those communities. It has been about 10 years that Oil Springs hasn't. Don always does, and the other two have as well. So I'm just thinking that we give them an opportunity to go out. Maybe it's the right conversation coming from their residents to their council that might engage them a little bit, and we attempt to see how that goes.
And I'm okay with that. I can live with that. I just think we can't let one get away with it for all those years and have the others pay. Councillor Welsh.
An entirely different concept here. I've been looking at what some other municipalities do with respect to different parts of their budget. And I'm wondering if we could begin on some level. It's called a participatory budgeting. And we bring in those communities for this specific portion of our budget. And we have them send a representative, and perhaps someone from the figure skating and someone from minor hockey and whoever else uses the arena. And they help draft the budget for the arena, because I think there's a lot of misconception about how much it costs to run this facility, and the fact that it is, hundreds of thousands of dollars in deficit every year to run that facility. And I don't think people understand that at all. And I know their fees are expensive, but I think maybe a good dose of reality for everybody might be good, and just to bring whoever is using that facility and now send a representative, and let's talk about how we can fix this, especially since they want to move forward with some sort of secondary ice pad which, quite honestly, probably will be here. And they're gonna have to help with that.
Good. Thank you, Councillor Welsh. I want to add on too, it's not just minor hockey and figure skating, it's public skating, mums and pops and tots, adult skating. So it's all these other things that we can't really keep a record of, but they use the facility. All right. I'm okay with that, Deputy Mayor Field, and we'll just see what happens. And hopefully these groups will maybe put some pressure on them. Let's move on to the food and beverage revenue.
And we will be reporting back on that, Your Worship. That was part of that directive. So once we've spoken to those 4 municipalities, we will be reporting back on
Okay.
that. As I said, it's just at Clinton, Wyoming at this moment. I believe their most recent council meeting.
Good. Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. That's good. All right. We'll move on to the ICE revenue. And you can see how that's been increased. Donation and reserves, there's nothing there. We'll go on to arena expenses. Office and general expenses. Repair and maintenance. Can't do anything with insurance. Building utilities, we're pretty well locked in. And the debenture payments, we are locked in. We'll go to Parks and Recreation. My
Yes, sir.
page is 26.
One additional question.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Hyatt.
I think it was maybe last term where we approved for the skate sharpening service in the arena. Is that still progressing? Is it working well?
I'll ask Mrs. Bullock, is that still going? I think that was Kevin Sylvester that was running that.
Yeah, he has not returned for this season.
Okay,
So we don't have any service at this.
so we don't have anyone there for skate sharpening.
That's
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, Parks and Recreation, and again, Mrs. Bullock, if there's anything that you think needs to be brought to council's attention, please interject. Grants, donations, and reserve funding.
Parks not get summer students?
So this past summer, we actually, as far as the grants, we didn't receive any summer student grants from Canada Summer Jobs. So for the 2025 season, we've zeroed out any potential grants just in case that should happen again that we get. We're certainly applying for them.
Oh,
But we're just not going to rely on that income coming in from the grant.
Q. All right, let's move on to facility rentals. Expenses, salaries, and remuneration. Off and general expenses. Programs and special events. Councillor Patel.
thank you through you, your worship. Tree planting program. We actually use less than $500. We have
I think they just put that program out this fall and probably have not paid for those trees or.
Yes, you're right.
Go ahead, Mr. Charlebois.
Bill hasn't come in,
Okay,
or hasn't come in as of the end of October. Might be in now.
Yeah, it's in now.
And now-
And it was basically, we've
It's
spent
another,
that
it's
whole
another
budget.
good service. Yeah.
agreed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Repair and maintenance. Oh, sorry.
I have a conflict of
Deputy Mayor
interest,
Field.
conflict of interest on repair and maintenance for my employer.
Okay, please note that Deputy Mayor Field has moved back from the table and
And
declared a conflict of interest.
That is section 4400, repair and maintenance that we'll be speaking to.
Okay,
And once again, can we vote on this separately? So
Yeah, we can
Deputy
do
Mayor
that.
May come
Yeah.
back in.
so I'll just ask from council, any concerns regarding the repair and maintenance? Councillor Hyatt.
My question, I guess, is parks and washroom facilities. I'm anticipating that the new washroom at the YMCA will be built for this year, but the budget cost is actually going down as opposed to going up. Is it just because we're not spending as much on washroom facilities?
Mr. Charlebois, would you like to speak to that, please?
I don't, maybe,
Mrs. Bullock?
would you like to say anything about that? That's
Yeah,
the
it's-
washrooms.
Yeah, exactly. So we've just been kind of changing the way we're doing the cleaning in all of the parks washrooms in general. So even including that one in that it's, we're just basically getting away from necessarily 7 days a week and potentially going to 5 days a week and things like that. So there's a savings there.
Is that okay, Councillor Hyatt?
Thank you.
All right. There's nothing else. I'll ask for a motion to approve section 4400 repair and maintenance, moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Hyatt.
I have one more question, sorry.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Is there any revenue that we were expect for the canteen from the new bathroom at the YMCA? Included in the budget or no?
I don't know if we've allowed for Mrs. Bullock. Can you speak to that, please?
Absolutely. So that revenue would be come under, let me find it. It would actually come under park rental because that's where the current rental or not rental, the fry truck would live. So then the canteen would potentially go there. So there is a little bit of extra money there that we will definitely, as long as once the facility's up and running, it will definitely be tendered out.
Thank you, Mrs. Bullock. I need a seconder still for that motion to approve that. I think, yeah, I got a mover, seconded by Councillor Clark. Any further discussion? And that's all, that's just basically approving the repair and maintenance. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. Please note, Deputy Mayor Field is back in his chair. We'll go on to Parks and Conservation Authority. Any questions regarding the Conservation Authority? Okay, I'll move on to, there's nothing we can do regarding the debentures. We'll go on to community events, the revenue.
Yeah, we've already done.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we did. And we've done farmers market.
Not yet.
Oh, all right. We'll do the farmers market. Again, Mrs. Bullock, please speak to that as we go. And we'll go to the revenue for the farmers market first. Any discussion? I guess my concern is we brought in 11,000. We're still just budgeting 7 like we did last year. Should we increase that maybe to 11? Last Mrs. Bullock, is there a reason why we're going to cut that back?
There were some vendors this season. We were quite full, but we had some vendors that were pretty concerned about attendance on some of the slower weeks. So we just wanted to keep it at a reasonable number so that we weren't overstating our income.
Okay. All right. So you feel comfortable about the 7,000?
Yes.
And we're not going to get any more money in now, are we?
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. And nothing else from council. We'll go on to expenses, salaries and remuneration. Office and general expenses. Repairs and maintenance. Nothing that we won't, insurance, utilities, and again, debentures, we're locked in pretty well. We'll move over to marketing revenue. Page 32, expenses for salaries and remuneration with marketing.
We've done marketing.
Oh, sure, we did. Sorry.
Marketing.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. So we move on to,
And we did the BTP.
we've done the theater.
It should be on
You
capital.
want to go to capital? All right, we'll go to capital. That's a good, that's a minus page 40.
Skip page 34 on our.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The reserve.
Oh, sure.
Is that go to the end or?
What, was that 34?
Yeah.
Did you say?
Yeah.
Reserves and loans.
Right before BPP.
Back
Yeah,
in the
open
other
loans,
budget.
yeah.
Got it. Okay. For reserves and loans?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. We'll do reverse, just do non-departmental reserve funds or reserves. Any questions regarding that? And again, the working capital, that's just basically what's left over that goes into reserve. Okay. We'll go to loans. Anything regarding those loans? Okay. Now we'll move on to capital then.
Page 40.
Page 40.
True page 40.
The through page 40.
Is that your page too, Rick? That's
Yeah.
good. All right. We'll do it different categories. We'll start with the arena. I guess just my question is the $20,000 for the security cameras. Do you want to speak to that, to Mrs. Bullock? Where are they going to go?
We're just looking to add more cameras around the outside of the building, potentially looking towards parking lot areas and things like that.
Okay,
Sometimes
thank you.
those are requested.
To add to that, we've been identified through our provincial police that there are some vision lines of deficiencies. So
Good. No, okay, that's good. Thank you. All right, let's move on to the cemetery. Again, Mrs. Pearson, if there's anything here that you want to bring to our attention, I see we've got some, I don't know if there's anything really new there other than,
we are also applying for a naturalization grant through the province, I believe. Correct, Rick? That tree grant is provincial, not federal?
Oh, yes, it's the FMC, I think.
Oh,
Or FCM.
yeah, yes,
Okay.
okay. So it is federal. So if we are successful in that, then there'll be some offset to that.
great.
What's
All right,
what's
we'll
the
move-
duration for that project? Sorry, the naturalization project? Is it
So,
lo-
So that particular section, that naturalization project, if you can picture section B, it's to make in that gully area where it'll become natural. Like that's not the word I was looking for, but it'll be so we're going to plant certain species that overgrow properly, and eventually that will be a possible location that we can make application for a natural burial ground. But this is the first stages in getting that so that it's it has that fescue and trees that make it low maintenance for our staff, but also possibly enable us to have a natural burial ground. So
That's not in the flood area, Mrs. Pearson?
that it is, but it doesn't flood.
okay.
So, but that's part of when we go for permission for natural burial ground, that'll be part of the consideration for the naturalization portion of it. That if it did, it would just regain, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's move on to community center. Couple large items at the bottom. I don't know if Mrs. Bullock, do you want to speak to those, or they're definitely needed, I guess, are they?
Yes, absolutely. The heating boilers are original to the building and definitely need to replace, and same with the heat exchanger.
Wow.
Councillor
Okay.
Hyatt?
Oh, Councillor Hyatt, sorry.
I guess my question is, like we have the reserve funds for the Parks and Rec. Why do we not apply the reserve funds from that? But from that reserve to cover some of these costs as opposing to using all new working capitals?
Think of that, Mr. Charlebois?
Friendly. We could do that, but we've been trying to use the Petrolia Y reserve for any operating shortfalls. So far, it's made a little bit every year, broke even. But if council wanted to, we could use some of that for in here.
How much are we looking
I
at?
think it was at least 3,000.
So if we take 100,000 or 200,000 out of there, or even 100,000 out?
One of the other things we're trying to do is to have a source of funding for the next phases at Petrolia, the outdoors stuff. There's a big push for pickleball courts and the multi-purpose court.
Yeah,
And we'll need matching funds probably for that.
Well, yeah, that's to apply for.
So that would be the
Right,
reserve.
Right.
Yeah.
So the reserves that are this, sorry, on page 36 of the presentation, it said we had $470,000.
Yes, that's it.
That's being saved for other backyard recreation project activities.
And operating shortages at the Y.
Councillor Hyatt, are you okay with that?
I just think it would make sense. Sorry, I don't know all the costs associated with the backyard project, but allocating some of this 470K towards the capital of 2025 for specifically for anything at the community center. Maybe it's the.
You could consider taking something out of that or some out of that, but certainly we need to leave the majority, I think, there, but we could consider maybe 100,000 or something.
I just don't want to, I don't want to jeopardize the other projects that are happening there for the project. But if there's funds that we think Or,
For example, we've applied for the one grant that we probably won't get because there's so much demand on it.
okay,
But on that particular grant, like Councillor Welsh said, we gotta pay half the money.
And that's for an additional building, was it not?
That's for pickleball courts. And what's the other piece?
Multi-purpose sports.
Multi-purpose court.
Okay.
Yes.
How much?
Deputy Mayor
A
Field.
million something.
Oh, sorry.
I think it was a million something.
Yeah, and trails and
Oh,
lighting.
and trails, right, yes, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
so there we'd need like 500,000, a little more, if we were to be successful on that grant.
Deputy Mayor Field.
So either way, it comes out of working capital
Uh,
reserve, or it comes out of the community center reserve. So these are just two reserves that
Yes. Could
if
be
we're
used-
spending
Council could use.
$200,000 here, it's coming out of there.
Yeah.
Or we could take it out of
Yeah.
there. So either way,
Exactly. All the
it's all
reserves,
still in the same bank.
there's reserves and what they call reserve funds. If we get this straight, one of
No,
them.
yeah, reserve funds. You're locked in. It can
That's
only be
it.
used for that purpose.
And
A
there's stuff
reserve.
like the gas tax, the OSIF, there's only a handful of things we can use it for, but all the other ones, the reserves, even though we have them, have them for the Petrolia Y, council can at any time use it for whatever.
So my point is,
Yeah, your
there's
point
no
is correct.
gain, there's no,
Points correct.
it still costs us $200,000.
Right.
Period.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on then. We'll go to the Victoria Hall. Farmers Market. Fire Department Capital.
The chief, did you want to say a word or two about the tanker coming?
Okay, Chief Cousins, go ahead.
Expense.
Sure, through your worship. Yeah, the tanker will be coming in January of 2026. So we've had a couple updates on it. This proposed date of January 2026.
There's still quite a time like it's about 700,000, I think, total cost. This is just
yeah,
our
just
partial payment,
785 or something
75.
to that effect. Yeah. So
And again, correct me if I'm wrong, this 138,000, that is just our share.
Yes.
that's correct.
Okay. Anything else for the fire department?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Just a quick comment. We got 60,000 in a reserve for the washroom upgrades. That we'll probably never get washroom upgrades by putting that much away. You know, it's it'll be an expensive project. It'll be lucky if that 60,000 keeps up with inflation.
Are you?
Well,
concerned?
it was passed by the fire department. I just want everybody to know that it's a pittance.
Okay.
Well, we have had
We're
the joint fire committee, both communities have to work together to try and come up with a
Yeah.
number. This committee settled on 100,000, 60,000 from
better than it's going.
town, 40,000 from Enniskillen. Councillor O'Hara is right. It'll be more, we won't be able to save it fast enough to actually do the project.
Councillor
It's a
Welsh.
start. It's a start, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Welsh.
Is there anything that can be done with those funds to improve the washroom facilities that can be built upon when the other community?
So
agrees?
we looked at that with the joint fire committee, and basically it's just, all we're gonna do is take that money, put something together and then throw it away. Like,
I just wondered if there was something that could be built upon, if there's a start to those improvements that you could begin to make. I don't know what the scope of the project is.
not really, but we could rent washrooms outside that had showers, and we'd have to put heat and hydro and everything else to them. The cost would be quite expensive, but it is coming down. It is being regulated that you have an hour to shower in the fire service, and we can't comply to that. And we do have 4 members that are off with one of the cancers that are recognized through the fire service, and that will only those numbers will only increase. So it is important, but
Are there grants available for that particular item?
haven't seen,
Oh, yeah.
well, there is, not specifically for washrooms, but they are for cancer prevention. So diesel exhaust fumes, which we have, and we're looking into getting a system into our fire hall, gloves, balaclavas, keeping the carcinogens off your bare skin and stuff. And we are taking advantage of some of those. It's just the big ticket item like the washroom is a problem. And we do have male, female on the fire department, so we have to have separate washrooms or potential for issues.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Field.
I know the fire committee has went through this and done this. I still just like to make the comment that there's not a town facility that we own, that we operate, that doesn't have proper washrooms in it, doesn't have AODA washrooms in it. It's getting to a point where we almost need to do something a little bit more, putting $60,000 away for how many years to try to do something. We're building washrooms for a soccer field. We're building washrooms everywhere. It's getting ridiculous that we don't have proper washrooms, proper showers, proper decontamination with our fire department. And I don't know what to do. I understand that our neighbors, we work together and we partner together, but this is ridiculous that we do not have the proper washrooms for our firefighters.
Just so I'm clear on this, Deputy Mayor Field. So we have both groups sit on the Fire Management Committee.
Correct.
So the majority or the holdup of this, I know Chad is the chairman, is the holdup not our local reps?
Our holdup is Enniskillen votes no,
Okay, that's all I
and
need to know.
Enniskillen votes no on washrooms. So I don't think either one of our reps has voted no to putting washrooms in. The price has went from $38,000 to $50,000 to
$268,000.
$268,000 for a washroom and decontamination area.
Wow.
So, you know what? I think there's a certain point where we need to have a conversation, and maybe I don't know where we have the conversation or how we have it, but
I think the challenge now is what we were originally looking at in terms of the scope of the project is not even close to what we actually need, right? Like
No.
we need what it's called a decontamination facility, which has
It has just
clean,
evolved.
clean side, dirty side,
Clean
showers in
side,
between.
dirty, yep. So
But
you're
they're not even
looking at
close
a $2 million addition minimum to be compliant.
Exceptionally wise, it's significantly different than what
Yes.
we were originally.
Okay, I think just so we're not all over the place here. Councillor Welsh.
Is this something we should consider actually getting a loan for and making it happen? And then the costs are just taken care of over the years and they are split 60-40. Like that's just part of your operating costs is the loan repayment to get this done. Like it does seem ridiculous to me that we don't have this.
The only concern I would have, Councillor Welsh, is I want to make sure they pay their 40%.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't want to get stuck saying, oh, we didn't approve it, so we don't have to pay for it. We need, maybe I can talk to the mayor, or maybe we need to talk to Enniskillen's mayor and say, maybe we need to up these numbers and get this done.
This shouldn't wait another year for us to make a decision on this. This is kind of a non-negotiable for me.
So through you, your worship, to Councillor Welsh, that is possible to, I'm not talking about the finance code. I'm not going to speak to the finance part of it, but should that be something, we would enter into an agreement with Enniskillen specifically to outline what those repayment responsibilities would be. So that would be a standalone agreement through a bylaw for both municipalities. Not speaking to how a grant would or a loan would happen, but to ensure both sides, that would become an agreement that we would be putting before both councils.
Is it appropriate at this time to put forward a motion to direct staff to?
Well, I wonder, Councillor Welsh, I wonder if we should just have I think Councillor Hyatt's the chairman. Why don't we first have that put on your agenda for the next meeting to try and see if we can resolve or discuss that, or even to state Petrolia's concern on not moving ahead with these washrooms. Why don't we try that first? And then if you report back and we're not getting any action, then we should consider a motion or some kind of an arrangement to go ahead and do this if they agree to pay us the 40% maybe in the future or over so many years.
But-
I don't, again,
So this has already been going on for a number of years with no gains. Like I'm I'm not suggesting that Councillor High can't convince them to make a move, but it hasn't happened yet. This isn't something that just happened today, right? This has
Right.
been non-negotiable with Enniskillen for a long period of time.
well, let's, we can still have them put it on the agenda so it's discussed, but we could certainly do a motion now and actually have it forwarded to the Fire Management Committee that they take action on this as soon as possible. Councillor Welsh.
So we are currently non-compliant with regulations
Cousin?
for decontamination, et cetera.
Right, there's no way we can have a shower within the hour for all of our members. They have to go home. So they'll shower and then they may come back to help clean up or they'll stay home because once they're home, I mean, there's other duties for them to do.
But the answer is no, we're not really in
Correct.
compliance then. Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Charlebois, go ahead.
I'm not sure if it's spelled out that clearly in legislation. I think that's the challenge.
Well, there is the challenge. There's an actual answer study that they sent out. There's a checklist, multiple pages, and you go through it and you check everything off and what you are compliant with and what you are not. So, and we are not for the majority of it.
That's not a regulation. Yeah.
Not yet. Just
Go ahead, Mr.
just two
Charlebois.
other quick points. So the chief and I and the chair of the joint fire committee over the last 6 months have put together a simple little 4-page strategic plan for our joint fire department. Because the fire department, in my opinion, especially didn't realize it was at it's at a precipice of like a big change, like retraining, recruitment, and retention are key things. And we thought it was the washrooms was the big issue, but once we started talking about it, it's not, the washrooms are part of it, but the much bigger issue, much more expensive issue is to get this decontamination part to the building. And
Yeah.
I don't think it's legislation yet, but I think it's coming.
It's in the process. That's why there's this cancer study sent out questionnaire checklist and we had to send it back to the government, OFM, so they could take a look at it and everything.
Councillor Clark.
So that being said, then do you see a prospective timeline where the government's going to say you have no choice but to do this?
I can't answer that. It could very well be. I can tell you the reason why, like getting off track here, but Sarnia built a new fire station. It was supposed to be 3 million by the time they were done at 7 point something. Because of that, everything had to be changed in the middle and some new rules and so on. They had to have a clean room and everything. So, yeah, it just evolved. So.
All right, Councillor Welsh.
I just feel like it's been batted around for obviously years, and I think we need to move ahead and we need to plan for this and get it done.
It's affected them.
You couldn't work at a plant without having a place to shower. They have places for their staff to shower when they're working in unsafe conditions with biohazards, except, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's unreasonable for us to ask our fire department to put themselves in danger every single day and not provide the proper facilities for them to clean up. They should not be going home to shower.
I still think probably a motion to the Fire Management Committee stating our concern for those very reasons. Councillor Patel.
Thank you. Just, ditto what everybody has shared, but it shocks me the liability we'd have to operate without being in compliance is just frankly mind-boggling that there is such a need and a stress to what we're putting this department through so to add that on top of what we expect them is just unacceptable. I don't have the answers to how to push forward with this, but
All right.
it's a tough conversation to hear.
Thank you, Councillor Patel. I think, so we move on here because we've been beating this to
So I
death.
do have a motion from Councillor Welsh.
All right, can you just hang on just for a second? Let's read that then, Mrs. Pierce. Sure.
So from Councillor Welsh, it is that council direct finance to look at seeking loan funding for construction of appropriate decontamination station and accessible washrooms in 2025. And in preparation for the changes to the legislation that will dictate the installation of proper decontamination stations at the fire department. And that an agreement be established with the township of Enniskillen to allow the township the financial flexibility to repay their 40% over a reasonable period of time.
I am confident with that motion.
You're, that, and
I would say
you're
for
going
that
to move
motion-
that?
I would say for that motion to be feasible, we would need to have some sort of understanding as to what we're gonna build.
Yes, and for,
Yeah.
that should be part and parcel. They're gonna have to give us an idea of what they need.
I think to date, we don't exactly
All right.
know.
But
Just so we go one at a time here. First of all, Mr. Charlebois, go ahead.
Actually, it's gonna, council may wanna just, and we're doing it, is to bring our strategic plan to Enniskillen. We haven't had that, discussion with them.
We shared that in.
Yeah, we shared it, but we haven't had the discussion because the first step, exactly like Councillor Hyatt just said, is to figure out what the statement of requirement is, like what do we need? All we know is we probably need an addition to the building. That would be the decontamination part, but there's a lot of engineering work in that would need to be done. That's probably the first cost to share with Enniskillen. So that's going to take at least a year.
So that would be, and that the fire chief and joint fire committee in preparation for the changes to the legislation that will dictate the installation of proper decontamination stations at the fire department return with a plan of what that decontamination station would be.
Plan of action, or actually jump straight to how we're going to get the statement of requirement. Like that's at least a year's process. The time we get a qualified engineering firm, get in the skill to pay
They-
share, and it's probably at least
That
100,000.
return with a proposed,
Sure, proposal
with a proposal.
through the joint fire committee.
Yeah, that the fire chief and joint fire
Okay,
committee
yeah.
in preparation. Okay,
All right, now, do we get a seconder on that, Mrs. Pearson?
not at this
Okay,
time.
so moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor O'Hara. Any discussion? Councillor O'Hara.
yeah, I think one of the best things we can do is for yourself and the mayor of Enniskillen, sit down and say what the situation is. Because, he never comes to a meeting, so I'm sure that Kevin doesn't really know.
I can talk, he sat on that committee for a while, but I don't mind speaking to him tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll make a note of that. All right, I think I'll ask Mrs. Pearson to read that motion again one more time, so we're all very clear on that, please.
And that is for the council to direct finance to look at seeking loan funding for construction of appropriate decontamination station and accessible washrooms in 2025. And that the fire chief and joint fire committee in preparation for the changes to legislation that will dictate the installation of proper decontamination stations at the fire department return with a proposal, and that an agreement be established with the township of Enniskillen to allow the township the financial flexibility to repay their 40% over a reasonable period of time.
Okay, are we all clear with that? Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. Okay, moving on sorry, Councillor Patel.
I don't know whether this is the appropriate time, but could I also bring a motion that a report be done up with an estimate of what it would cost to rent showers, knowing that we're going to have this lengthy process? Could we at least look at what it would cost to rent showers in the interim that would support the fire department while we attempt to move forward on a more progressive scale so that we can at least look at what it would cost?
I think if I could, Councillor Patel, maybe we can just direct the fire chief to go out and see if he can obtain some costs, if you would do that and report back.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right. All right, moving on to the library. Oh, sorry, did I miss general government?
And your worship, we are at 2:00, just if you wanted to take
All
this
right.
opportunity.
Yeah, let's take our break now. Again, I want to keep this moving. We got held up a bit, but we will take, can we make this just a 15-minute break?
It's scheduled to be, yeah.
Oh, good.
Done?
No, 20 minutes.
Oh, 20 minutes. I thought it was scheduled for
Can
15.
we do it in 15?
Sure.
All right.
What do we have left? Just the rest of capital?
Just the rest of capital.
Yeah, just the rest of capital. All right.
Fee
We
schedule.
can go 20 after, report back at 20 after 2. Because it's almost
Or
5
just do
after
it.
now.
Or not.
Stand up.